There is going to be a product theater luncheon presentation. So both on Saturdays, we will be there. Join us if you are there in Sacramento or virtually visit our booth.
Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with me, Dr. Raja.
And me, Dr. Hadar, where we discuss all things skin.
Join us as we delve into the art and science of skin health in today's episode.
Hey, Raja, can you say the thing I told you to tell them?
Of course. We are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is not considered medical advice, nor does it serve as a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Health, Inc. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hey, Raja, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well, but guess what? I'm buzzing with excitement, aren't you?
I know. I have a feeling I know what you're talking about because, we talk a lot about integrative dermatology and the need to build community, and community is friendships and relationships and developing our research around community. And I cannot think of a better partner in our community and our journey than the people we're going to have on this podcast. Can you?
Oh, and speaking of buzzing, it's going to be the head of clinical and scientific affairs, Hemali Gunt from Burt's Bees. And,
that's right.
Hadar, it's one thing when we have a lot of, science, and I think that's really important, but we need practical things too. And that's what Burt's Bees brings to the table. They bring a practicality to the science so that we can actually do things for our patients.
Yes. And can you jump into her bio because we haven't heard it? I don't know who she is. Can you tell us who she is? I mean, she's one of our most popular podcast guests, and she's back again, this time with news for IDS. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And she is really focused on demonstrating scientifically based skincare benefits through clinical testing, laboratory investigations, and a lot of instrumental assessment. She's got a lot of experience. She's worked as a clinical scientist at a contract testing lab, and she's done a lot of clinical trials of personal care products. So I can't think of anyone better than to have you on this podcast, Hemali. We are super excited. And as I said, pun totally intended, buzzing with excitement.
Hey, Hadar and Raja, it is so great to be speaking with you again. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
No, absolutely. And as I mentioned in our opening, you have been here before, and every time you come, you bring us some new exciting information about what's cooking in your beehive. So tell us, what have you been up to since we spoke last time?
I know, right? It's been 4 years of this, wonderful initiative that your team started with the Integrative Derm Symposium. And we are so, so excited to be part of it again this year. So what has Berts been up to since last year is what you asked, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. We are excited to find out. What have you been doing since last year?
There's so much innovation, right? There's so much innovation. We can't even think of a better question than to ask, what's up? Because
so broad.
Sometimes it's mind-blowing. So yeah, please tell us.
Yeah. So has it already been a year? I don't know whether I want to attribute it to what these psychologists and neuroscientists are calling the distortion of time that is perceived by many due to COVID.
No kidding.
But this year has gone by really, really quickly, but not without accomplishments and obviously not without learnings. So, a couple of high-level things that I would like to point out when, you're asking what we have been doing for the past year. Obviously, our focus is still very much crafting nature-based products supported by sound clinical and scientific research. And we have taken a giant step as a leader in evidence-based natural skincare. So I'm so, so thrilled to share with you and your audience that we are now dermatologist-approved natural skincare brand. So this is really a feather in our cap. We have gone a long way. We have been doing all the work and, bringing it to professionals, to skincare communities, to dermatologists like yourself, and to be able to have this feather in our cap. We are really proud. So that is one.
Hemali, can I ask you a question on that? What does it mean to be dermatologist approved, and how is that a brand or that label garnered?
Sure. So it is actually conducted through a survey to the dermatologists within the US. There are obviously a lot of layers to it, but it is a survey which is, like I said, sent out to the derms. So it is a long way coming, and to have it, we are really proud of that.
Well, Hemali, what you're saying is it's not some guy sitting in some corner room.
No.
Love it. I mean, look at this. Look at this, Hadar. Science behind labeling. Did you think you were going to hear about that?
Yes, it is
I
very
know.
rigorous. It is very, very rigorous. Trust me.
I thought when you said that you meant the phone call we talked the other day, and I said, "Wow, your product's really cool."
And I don't even know actually if you probably have been a part of it. I'm not sure. But yeah, there are strict guidelines that one has to follow to ensure that it is supported.
Yeah, it's wonderful news, and I think it reassures everybody involved, including customers and dermatologists, that there's some rigor behind this decision. And it's not surprising.
So that is, one of the biggest accomplishments for us in the last year. And then again, you are well aware that we have this product line of sensitive products, which has been approved by the National Eczema Association.
Yes.
And joining our portfolio is one more product, which is a broad spectrum SPF 30 product. So our goal was to create 100% mineral sunscreen with SPF 30 for sensitive skin. And just in general, knowing how important it is to protect skin on a daily basis, especially now knowing that, over 63% or 65%, I guess, of African Americans, they do not use sunscreens. We wanted to develop a non-whitening formula that could work for all skin tones. So we have that particular product, and we have received the Skin Cancer Foundation seal of recommendation on our sensitive calming SPF 30 day cream. So that is, again, a huge achievement for us to create a product like that naturally with mineral sunscreens is hard to do. So hats off to all our formulation chemists who have done a wonderful job at creating this product.
And Hemali, one theme that I think I hear through all these new accomplishments is the word sensitive. And perhaps you can tell us, why is it so important to address this issue of sensitive skin?
Sure. We actually, I'm taking you back like a decade right now, but we launched our sensitive products 10 years ago. And in that point in time, even though there was research going on around it, the population was still very small. And in the last 5-7 years, we have just seen that it has dramatically increased, whether you look at, just regions around the world. In fact, there have been so many epidemiological studies that have been conducted all around the world. And it is seen that more than 50% of adults suffer from sensitive skin. Earlier, the focus used to only be women, and it was, like 50 to 60% of women suffer from sensitive skin. And now they have put men in the mix, and, it's close to 40%. So the condition has been increasing tremendously. And obviously, there are so many factors involved, right? So we wanted to, one, bring products that really work for this condition. And we wanted to address one of the most complicated symptoms of sensitive skin, which is the sensory effects. Again, there is global consensus that the sensory symptoms of the sensitive skin condition, they negatively affect quality of life. And a lot of products, as they do the pre-market safety, the tendency is to just look at, the product is well tolerable. And most of the products, that are on the market for this condition, they obviously are tolerable, but we have taken it a step further to actually address their subjective symptoms of sensitive skin condition and, quote unquote, improve their quality of life.
So, Hemali, I want to dive into that for a second. When you talk about these symptoms, what are we talking about? Like stinging and burning, that kind of stuff?
Exactly. So, if I can break it down as we, get into the study, but subject selection is one of the key components when you are testing this kind of condition. And, I want to bring your attention, therefore, to the panel. We know that sensitive skin is not a single condition. It has different categories of subjects with different sensitivities and different mechanisms. And therefore, we approach the selection of our panel with great caution. We included subjects who had barrier defects, that is typically seen in atopic dermatitis. And then we had folks who are stingers and they have high reactivity. Therefore, there were folks who were clinically diagnosed with cosmetic intolerance. So they are the ones who are experiencing that burning, stinging, itching. And then there is a group of subjects with rosacea that includes the vasculature component of irritation, along with that visible redness that you see along with the sensory irritation. So we included these three different groups of, different conditions and called them with a sensitive skin panel, and tested our product on them.
It's funny. Years ago, when I just met Raja, actually, he introduced me to one of the smartest people in dermatology, Howard Maybach.
Oh,
And,
yes.
and Howard says, Hadar, let's look at this condition called the sensitive skin syndrome. And since then, I realized it's probably one of my more cited papers, which I had no idea. I was just looking it up, preparing for our podcast today. But I do remember from writing this, the differential diagnosis is quite broad. And I do want to make sure that our listeners understand that when you are dealing with these kind of symptomology, the dermatologist is probably your best buddy to kind of go through all the possible conditions that could probably manifest as the so-called sensitive skin.
Exactly.
A lot of times we don't find out what really is the underlying pathophysiology or the underlying cause, but a lot of this, as was mentioned here by Hemali, can be sometimes just rosacea or seborrheic dermatitis, and that manifests as sensitivity to various products. And once you do that, it's great to have some over-the-counter product line that tries to support that. So I congratulate you for doing this. I was kind of looking at burtsbees.com, and I realized that's a theme definitely through all your products.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Earlier it used to be called the sensitive skin syndrome, and it was only associated with folks who were quote unquote like called rich and who were using a lot of like cosmetic products. Right. And since then, how it has evolved now, and there are so many trigger factors, but it's come a long way. The history of sensitive skin is very interesting. And you're right, there are a lot of Dr. Maybach's papers associated with it, which I have read.
Yeah, Molly, I mean, it's actually really interesting that it used to be associated with being rich and using too many elegant products.
I know, right?
It's pretty funny because some of the testing that even we've done is like putting things like methyl nicotinate or hexylnicotinate, and that can trigger. But I really appreciate the fact that now we've broadened this definition. We've included other conditions like rosacea, where sensitive skin is a component of it. And we realize that this is an all population offender at the end of the day. It's not any one population. I think
exactly.
That we see it across the board. So very important. Now, what are your brand plans for IDS 2021, Hadar, the best conference in our opinion?
Yes, no, I'm super excited. This is literally around the corner, and I cannot wait to see every year you guys have something cool for us. So tell us, what are you bringing to Sacramento this time?
We obviously love participating and showcasing our research at the meeting. So in addition to the research that I described earlier, we are presenting two more pieces of data or two more pieces of research science. One is centered around our renewal product, which contains bakuchiol, the natural alternative to retinol, combined with vitamin C. And we have shown in that product that it can be used safely in sort of a sensitive skin condition, which is, again, acne-prone skin. There is that barrier disruption going on, and it helps improve uneven skin tone. And then the last piece of research that we are sharing is around our hyaluronic acid-containing moisturizer, which was tested in an in vitro epidermal skin model. And the data is pointing towards how the product is able to reinforce the skin barrier through markers such as Claudin-1 and involucrin. So that's the science piece of it. We do some other fun things, which is we are hosting events, throughout the conference. There is a morning yoga, and there is going to be a product theater luncheon presentation. So both on Saturdays, we will be there. To all your listeners, join us if you are there in Sacramento, or virtually visit our booth and stop by and say hello to us. We'd love to share more with you guys.
It's going to be so good to see people in person and to see each other as electrons yet again. But I think the flesh and in the person will be very, very nice change from this, like you said, distortion of time. I think it'll hopefully set time back in the right space. Now, speaking of time, 2022 is right around the corner. So what should we be looking out for from Burt's Bees in this next year? And for sure, whether distortion or not, there's going to be innovation. So I'm very curious what you can talk about.
Yeah, so for 2022, again, a lot of exciting things. I can't wait for the American Academy of Dermatology meeting. But before I get into what we are presenting there, we are obviously exploring how we can continue to expand further into the natural skincare space. I mentioned earlier that, we are crafting our products, formulating with natural ingredients. We are clinically testing and proving our results, in a diverse range of skin tones, whether it's consumer testing or clinical testing. We have always taken into consideration all races, but we have also understood that there is, a research gap in the skin of color. So over the last year, we have committed and doing more work to ensure that our studies and products are reflective of the population using them. So we initiated a very important work stream to represent this diverse skin types in our product lines. And in partnership with dermatologists and experts in skin of color, we have developed a very powerful complex that's targeted specifically for hard to treat skin pigmentary issues. And not only do we have a cross-functional team complete with, a skin of color chemist, a product designer, a marketeer. They have the reins of this project and are bringing this project to life. So it's really very, very fulfilling. The initial assessment of that complex is very promising, and we are soon taking it to clinical testing. So the part of that will be shared at the AAD in addition to bakuchiol containing SPF 30 broad spectrum. There is another SPF product that we are launching within our renewal portfolio. And how can we forget, folks with acne? So there is interesting research on our natural acne product line. A lot of the consumers that use acne products, they often complain of excessive skin dryness and irritation. So we have products that we are trying to address that, and we are going to be talking about some of that research there too. So a busy year for R&D, but nonetheless, I said it's fulfilling to see all the things come together. And finally, when you talk about it, it's a proud moment.
That's fantastic, especially this commitment to making sure the skin that we're recruiting into studies is diverse. Because I think historically, the problem has always been if people are going to look at, say, wrinkles, it's been primarily skin types 1 and 2. But now I think we see photoaging is not just for those that burn within seconds of going outside, but maybe for those that don't burn at all. And, it doesn't get mottled pigmentation, and you still have collagen breakdown, and, there are still issues that are at hand. So I think this is such a really great step forward. And I will tell you, there are more atlases coming out now that are looking at diverse skin and trying to make sure that people really educate on diversity. So I think this is definitely the right way to go. Burt's Bees leading the way yet again, Hemali. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and I got to say, the theme for our meeting was to make integrative dermatology really accessible to all, and not just diversity, skin of color, sexuality, or whatever diversity. Really, it's the economic diversity that I think is the main barrier a lot of times to really get to this integrative care. And what I like about your website, again, I always like to cruise around this burtsbees.com. Beautiful website, by the way, very accessible, easy to use. And I like the prices. I got to say, the prices are affordable. This is really quality skincare that you can kind of trust. Now we heard it's approved by dermatologists, and it wasn't me. And so it's really nice. And that's part of the theme for our meeting, not just by products, of course, but also by how dermatologists practice and how we approach patient care with that kind of idea in mind, that the integrative space is not, again, just for the quote unquote rich or those who are privileged, but how do we make it really accessible to everybody who deserve it. Right. So thank you. And like Roger said, thank you again for leading the way and being part of our mission to make integrative dermatology really accessible to everyone.
No, thank you so much, Hadar.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm really curious when you're looking at research, I want to understand when you're setting up studies, what are some of the ways that you're thinking about demographics? You mentioned you want to be more diverse. Can you just speak to, what are the characteristics in a clinical study that you would say makes it a diverse study?
Sure. So typically in most of the studies, and I mean, I have been doing this for well over 15 years, maybe actually now coming on 18 years if I count my grad school days. But that was something that was, taught to us from the get-go, that you have to understand where the product is going to be, launched, sold, whatever, who is going to be a target consumer, and understand the target population. And, primarily Burt's Bees has been selling within the US. So we try to understand what the US population is. So it ranges. Earlier, it used to range from, 70% Caucasian, and then 30% was a mix of African American, Hispanics, and Asians were very, very few. In the last 5 years, I have seen the shift where now Caucasians are 50, 60%. That is, about 25% African Americans and, about 15 to 20% Hispanics. Asians still a very small amount of that entire population in terms of who our consumers are. But anytime we are designing a study, this is something that we ensure, if we are doing, that is why clinical studies end up getting so expensive, right? Because you want to have a sample size that is able to, provide the right kind of statistical analysis. And then you want it to represent the entire population. So it sometimes runs into 100, 200, 300 subjects. We have always tried to include all races. They might be in a varying degrees, the way I mentioned in terms of the US population, but there have always been all races, primarily all skin tones. There was, I want to say probably 5-7 years ago, we had launched a product particularly for Asian skin type. And that is when then the study was obviously conducted in Asia because it was supposed to be marketed towards them. So understanding who your target consumer is obviously the first step in any kind of clinical design.
And I'm glad you mentioned this because you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is, right? You have to invest a lot in the research and development, not just the actual science, but where you're going to apply it. And that matters. And reaching a lot of power in your study so you can really analyze it for the various skin tones, the various responses, I think is crucial. And again, we, as you know, we really appreciate the fact that you take the time, the energy, and yes, the resources, the dollars to actually accomplish this kind of research. It's not easy and it's definitely not cheap. Well, I think, Raja, we just got a little soundbite.
Oh my God, so exciting.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to see this all in person. And for those of you who want to join us virtually, you're welcome as well. But we'll be in Sacramento and checking out the research and the poster session and some of the other sessions. And definitely, I'm going to be in the yoga one because it's been a while since people saw me in shorts. And so I think it's time to do it.
Bring your sunglasses, everyone, for Hadar's legs. That's all I can say.
Yes, and wear sunscreen. Do not forget.
Well, Hemali, thank you again. Thank you for all the work you're doing for our community, and we truly appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
No, thank you so much, Hadar and Raja. I appreciate it.
Hey, Raja, what are you doing this October 22nd through the 24th?
There's only one right answer to that question. The 4th Annual Integrative Dermatology Symposium.
Of course. Now, a question. Are you going to travel all the way to Sacramento, California to meet me in person, or are you going to join virtually in your pajamas?
Pajamas in person? Well, you might see me in pajamas at the Sheraton Grand in person in Sacramento, or maybe I'll be in a Jolly Folly costume. Who knows? But I'm excited to chair this hybrid one-of-a-kind conference with you, Hadar.
Well, man, I do love this unique event our team just put together. This is an event that really takes an integrative approach to common patient questions, also an integrative approach to challenging dermatology diseases. We also are going to cover aesthetics and have practical takeaways to start using in the clinic right away, just when you come back. So, this is the kind of information I just can't find with any other meeting.
So true. And the good news is it's not just for us. It's for practitioners of all backgrounds, and everyone is welcome. Use our discount code, IDS25 at checkout for 25% off registration. And you can find us at www.integrativedermatologysymposium.com. Come say hi and tag us on social if you'll be there. And our tag is @IntegrativeDermSymposium.
We hope to see you there.